Alrighty, fellas, we're back for another year of RFL Fantasy Football. Let's go! Let's get us kicked off this week with the number 1 and 2 teams in the nation. Go figure. Guru loves the mighty Steelers again this year, but Steelers were welcomed by a strong heat-seeking team with a massive running attack and the other man leading them at quarterback. This one was never, ever close, as the heater got off and running at 1 o'clock and never looked back. Let's go fantasy reality. Reality is, Heatseeker has a strong team. He's got a staple of running backs. He's got running back on his bench, and LT that looks like he's taking over a new job. He's got a receiver on his bench, giving him 20. He's got Hoosh Mazood on his bench. Looks like the strongest team the Heatseekers had ever, which isn't tough since he's never had a good team before. We move on to fantasy, and the fantasy is Heater's a 113 a week team. I mean, nobody in the history of this league ever has been. The reality of his fantasy is he's got receivers with young quarterbacks, and young quarterbacks are inconsistent, which means his receivers will be inconsistent. He's got Eli Manning at the helm, which has been to 2 championship games, but has failed miserably in both of them. So he's the Marty Schottenheimer of quarterbacks. He's just good enough to get you there. We'll keep a good close eye on these seekers and see how it pans out for him. Well, let's stay in the division. We'll move on to our former 3-time champion Habibs against the driver of that big purple and blue truck, D. Sim. And looks like that purple and blue truck brought out his defense this year, holding Habibs to 32 points. 32 to 51 as Habibs had to stay up Monday night only to watch his team fall. Let's go fantasy reality on this team. Fantasy is that either one of these teams are going to continue to win, scoring 51, 32 points. This is the RFL, boys. You're going to have to step it up a little bit. Reality is Habib's revenge. If they're going to look to get number 4, they're going to have to get some more production. I mean, they got 3 goose eggs out of their starters, and we're talking key guys that he's banking on. D-Sep does have 4 goose eggs in his lineup also, but he got a whopping 41 out of his 51 points from his Bengals. He's going to need his Bengals are going to need some help if they're going to continue to win. Alright, let's push on. Let's go to the Big Willie Barbarians versus the Shockers. The Shockers do what only they can do. They put 2 in the pink and 1 in Big Willie's stain. Ugh, because this one wasn't pretty. Shot came out and did work. Let's go to fantasy reality. Reality for Big Willie's Barbarians is, if the Saints struggle, he's going to struggle. You look at his bench, he has no points. Help is not on his way. Let's just go to fantasy. Fantasy is the Shock thinking he's just going to run around this league putting shit in pinks and stinks and not getting anybody to stand up to him. This was Big Willie this week, Shock. Reality sets in next week and the weeks after. There's only one guy in this league that's going to allow you to put something in his pink. I mean, it's pretty established. Weight isn't the only thing that Big Willie is accustomed to losing. Moving on, we got probably the game of the week as we got our champ versus the studs. And this one was close to out. You know, the studs got out early. He had a lot of meat early, and the champ just had to weather the storm and hope to steal a game late Monday night. And that never panned out as champ with his risky pick with the early running back from San Diego falls a couple of points shy as the studs get out and running early in the division. Let's go fantasy reality. Reality is, boys, you guys waited on quarterbacks, and you got what you get when you wait on a quarterback. Lower output. Let's go to fantasy. Fantasy is the champ is going to repeat with his quarterback situation. I mean, he's got Matt Ryan and Cobb. He's going to need to make a move. He's got to have to upgrade somewhere because the rest of his team doesn't have the explosion of a CJ to give him 50-point weeks to carry him this year. Good luck.
You know what West Coast niggas is gonna tell me? This is too West Coast.
You in my own thing. And if you got a problem with that, then the need that go bang, 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 bang. And I'll be everywhere on the map, but I rep that West. I rep that I rep that West.
Come on.
I rep that West. I rep that West. I rep that West.
Turn it up.
Now we move on to the West. The West is the best. That's why, damn it, you know what? We got to spice up our games a little bit over here on the West side. You know why? We get a theme song. If you guys from your other divisions decide you want a theme song, come with it. I mean, you know, we got Ice Cube banging in the background there in our games. You know, we rep that well. Until you come up with something corny about the Central or whatever song you got, this is how the West is going to get down. So get used to it. Just sit back, relax, feel it. Feel the West. And let us roll on. And staying in the West, we got the next against the Brews. The Brews do what they normally do. They find a receiver from New York that starts the season out hot and continues, but he'll probably tail off in the end. But anyway, the Brews roll. Brews roll again. Getting off to another fast start at first. Let's go fantasy reality. Reality is, well, if the Brews have found this year's Steve Smith and Knicks, they'll be tough again. I mean, running backs are going to be solid. Aaron Rodgers is going to be better than he was, and he had an 86-point week. Looks like another tough squad from the Brews. And let's go to fantasy. Fantasy is, you can have a first-timer, especially a female first-timer, come into our draft and do well. It just doesn't happen. Sorry, Anns, but being there at the draft is a little different than sitting behind the computer making pickups. And that's why your team will struggle. West side? Looks like we saved the West for last. We got battle over the old BLVD, Old Lippincott Boulevard. And, you know, some things change, some things staying the same. See, Matthew, how long I've been whooping your ass? 31, 32, yeah, right around 32 years. Well, it looks like number 33 started yesterday as I finished the job off late Monday night. Let's go fantasy reality. Reality is, you had better get used to little or no production from little Mr. Sean Green, because it looks like LT is taking over in that job. Fantasy for the rest of the league is think that Matt Stump the Schwab is only going to give me 4 points a week. Buckle it up, boys. 4,700 yards wasn't a fluke last year. He'll be back. Well, we got our first episode of Behind the Woodshed this year. Take a look who it is. Is that young Matthew with Tater Top Forcier? The savior himself? Well, I figure since we're not going to be putting any Michigan quarterbacks behind there this year, we might as well get the one from last year back there. Holla. Yeah, cue it. Yeah, only those with W's like to hear this music coming into the week. You don't ever want to be the punk that jumped up and beat you down. Well, clearly this week it was a pretty obvious beat down because it was mighty quiet around these players. I mean, the Seekers came out, they took their #1 ranking, and they just bitch smacked. I mean, just bitch smacked the Steelers all over. So, Mighty One, 4-time champion, drive for 5, or whatever you want to call it, you are this week's punk that jumped up. Well, here we go. I mean, this is the Magically Delicious Award show, so this is what we get together for. You know, this week it wasn't too much dramatics. It was only one game that really gave us any type of dramatics, and that was the Studs versus our champ. And the champ had, you know, down 2 with 2 players on the field. San Diego down points, and he still couldn't get that 2 more receptions out of Floyd, even though he was targeted 4 times at the end of the game. Couldn't get another 16 yards rushing out of Matthews, even though they were handing the ball off to him, draw plays. So, I must conclude after that, the Studs must have been smashing out some lucky charms to prevent that from working. He did his work in the kitchen that morning. Therefore, Studs, you are magically delicious.